My daughter-in-law told me to eat in the laundry room. She regretted it before dessert. I was sitting in the laundry room, next to a humming dryer and a stack of folded towels, when I realized I'd become invisible in my own son's house. My daughter-in-law, Jasmine, had looked right at me, in front of 10 dinner guests, and said, "Gloria, you don't mind sitting in here, do you? The dining table's already full." Everyone laughed politely, pretending not to hear the cruelty hidden in her voice. But I heard it. I felt it. Like a knife wrapped in a smile. So, while they ate steak and shrimp under the crystal chandelier, I sat in the laundry room with a plate on my lap, staring at detergent bottles and a basket of mismatched socks. I told myself it was fine, that I didn't want to cause a scene, that Aaron would speak up for me, that surely he'd see how wrong it was. But my son didn't say a word. He kept his head down, cutting his food like nothing was happening. And that silence hurt more than Jasmine's words ever could. Before I tell you what happened before dessert, before the moment Jasmine's perfect evening crumbled right in front of her guests, I want to know where you're watching from tonight. Write your city in the comments and let me know you're here. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. Every single day we share powerful real-life stories about women, family, and the moments that change everything. My name is Gloria Bennett. I'm 68 years old, and I've spent my life feeding people with love and respect. But that night, sitting in the laundry room, I learned what it feels like to be treated like the help. And Jasmine Bennett was about to learn what it feels like to be humbled. For most of my life, I never asked for much. I was born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama, where people believed in hard work, good manners, and strong faith. My late husband, Charles, used to say, "Gloria, you make any house feel like home." He wasn't wrong. I worked 32 years as a school cook, feeding hundreds of children before ever sitting down for my own meal. Our house was small but full of warmth. Charles built the porch himself, and every Sunday we'd sit there with sweet tea and neighbors dropping by. My son Aaron grew up in that world, running through the backyard barefoot, chasing lightning bugs, smelling cornbread and fried chicken from the kitchen window. He was a good boy. Respectful, soft-spoken, the kind who'd open doors and say, "Yes, ma'am." When Charles passed 10 years ago, Aaron was already in college on a scholarship. He'd call me every week, asking if I was eating well, if I needed anything. I'd laugh and say, "Baby, your mama's fine. Just proud of you." Then he met Jasmine. She was different from anyone in our family, beautiful, polished, and ambitious. Born and raised in Atlanta, she worked in marketing for a luxury real estate firm. I remember the first time Aaron brought her to my home. I'd cooked my Sunday best: pot roast, mac and cheese, collard greens, and peach cobbler. The food that says, "Welcome." Jasmine stepped in wearing heels that clicked across my wooden floor like she was walking through a showroom. Her perfume was strong, her smile polite but distant. She glanced around, eyes catching the old family photos on the wall, the crochet doilies, the worn armchair Charles used to love. "This is cozy," she said with a tight smile. I could tell what she meant. Too small, too simple, too ordinary. But I smiled anyway. That's what makes it home, baby. At dinner, she barely touched her food. Aaron loved it, he always did. But Jasmine ate like she was on a cooking show, taking tiny bites, politely pretending. After dinner, while I was washing dishes, I heard her whispering to Aaron in the living room. "Your mom's sweet, but this place is so outdated. I don't know how she lives like this." That stung, but I stayed quiet. I'd learned to pick my battles. Months passed, and Aaron married her in a big ceremony downtown. A glass ballroom, designer decorations, a jazz trio. It was stunning, but cold. No laughter, no warmth. None of the heart I remembered from weddings back home. They moved into a new house in Buckhead, a big 2-story home with marble counters, white walls, and furniture that looked more for pictures than people. I visited a few times, but every visit felt like walking into someone else's world. "Take your shoes off, Gloria," Jasmine would say with that same smile. "We just had the floors cleaned." She always called me Gloria, never Mom or even Miss Gloria. Just Gloria, like I was the mail lady or someone from her office. Still, I kept trying. I'd bring over food sometimes, Aaron's favorites. Jasmine would thank me but never serve it. "We're on a new diet," she'd say, trying to cut down on fried foods. So the food I made with love would sit untouched in the fridge, then disappear days later. I noticed little things changing too. The way Aaron dressed. The way he talked. The way he started saying things like, "Jasmine thinks we should," instead of, "I think we should." I wasn't angry at her. I was worried. Worried that my son was slipping into a life where kindness looked like weakness and appearances meant everything. The breaking point came 2 months before that dinner party. Jasmine called and said, "Gloria, would you mind staying with us for a while? Aaron's working long hours, and we'd love for you to help out with meals." I said yes, thinking maybe she was finally opening her heart. Maybe this was my chance to reconnect with my boy. I packed my suitcase, baked a batch of cornbread for the road, and took the bus from Montgomery to Atlanta, praying it was the start of something better. I had no idea I was walking into a house where respect didn't live anymore. When I arrived at their house in Atlanta, Jasmine greeted me at the door with that picture-perfect smile of hers. The kind that never reached her eyes. "Gloria, you made it. Let me show you to your room." Room. That word gave me a small hope. Maybe she'd prepared something nice. Maybe this was her way of starting over. But when she led me down the hall, past the guest bedroom, past Aaron's office, and finally opened a door near the back of the house, my heart sank. "This used to be the laundry room," she said cheerfully. "But I've cleared some space for you." Inside was a narrow twin bed pushed against the wall, right next to the washer and dryer. There was a small lamp and a folded blanket, but the smell of detergent hung heavy in the air. A single suitcase could barely fit at the foot of the bed. "Oh," I said softly, "you didn't have to go through all this trouble." "It's just temporary," she replied quickly. "You'll be comfortable here. Plus, it's quiet." Quiet. That's one word for it. Lonely would have been another. Aaron came home later that evening, smiling like everything was perfect. "Ma, you got settled in okay?" "I did, baby," I said, forcing a smile. "It's good to see you." Jasmine came out from the kitchen, holding a glass of wine. "We're having salmon and salad tonight. I didn't think you'd want any. You probably prefer something heavier." I blinked. "I like salmon just fine." "Oh, wonderful," she said. "Then I'll fix you a plate." Dinner was quiet. Aaron tried to keep the conversation going, but Jasmine's tone never softened. She talked about her job, her clients, her new friends in Buckhead, all people whose names I couldn't remember and whose lives felt miles away from mine. Every time I spoke, Jasmine would interrupt or change the subject. "So Gloria," she said halfway through the meal, "how do you like living in Montgomery?" "Must be slow, right?" "It's peaceful," I said. "People know each other there. It's home." "That's nice," she said, smiling just enough to look polite. After dinner, I offered to wash the dishes, something I always did, even when visiting. Jasmine hesitated, then said, "If you insist. Just be careful with the crystal glasses. They're expensive." That night, I lay in the little bed beside the dryer, staring at the ceiling. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the washing machine, reminded me how out of place I was. I tried to pray, tried to tell myself to be patient. But the more time passed, the clearer it became. Jasmine hadn't invited me to bond. She'd invited me for convenience. The next morning, I woke up early and started making breakfast. Biscuits, eggs, grits, the kind of breakfast that fills a house with warmth. When Aaron came downstairs, he smiled wide. "Now this is home," he said, hugging me. But Jasmine froze in the doorway, her tone clipped. "Oh, you cooked?" "Yes, ma'am," I said cheerfully. "Hope you don't mind. Thought I'd surprise y'all." "It's sweet," she said tightly. "But we don't really eat heavy breakfasts. We do smoothies and protein bars." Aaron tried to smooth it over. "Babe, just one day won't hurt." But Jasmine barely ate. She picked at her food, then pushed her chair back. "Well, I should get going. Big day at the firm." She kissed Aaron's cheek and grabbed her purse, but before she left, She turned to me. Oh, Gloria. Next time, maybe check with me before using the kitchen. I just like things done a certain way. I smiled, but inside, something cracked. That became her pattern. Small cuts, hidden behind politeness. Comments about my clothes being old-fashioned. About how I probably wasn't used to city life. About how I didn't need to worry about cleaning, but then sighing loudly when I didn't do things her way. Aaron never noticed, or maybe he chose not to. He was busy with work, happy just to have everyone under one roof. But I noticed. I noticed how Jasmine started hosting more dinners, inviting her friends from the firm, people who spoke in clipped, careful voices and wore smiles that never felt real. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry, I overheard her on the phone. She means well, but it's exhausting, Jasmine said. Her energy, her cooking, everything's so old school. I can't keep living like this. I just need Aaron to see that. She paused. No, I can't just kick her out. Yet. I folded the towel in my hands and took a deep breath. The Lord had given me patience all my life, but even He knows there's a limit. That limit came the night of the dinner party. The night she told me to eat in the laundry room. The night of the dinner party, the house looked like something out of a magazine. Jasmine had spent the whole day directing a catering team, arranging flowers, and lighting candles that cost more than a week of groceries back home. I stood in the kitchen, wearing my nicest dress, the blue one I'd saved from Charles's retirement dinner. It wasn't designer, but it was pressed and clean, and I'd pinned on a small silver brooch shaped like a dove. Charles used to say it made me look like grace in motion. Jasmine came sweeping through the kitchen in a gold satin gown, hair pulled into a perfect bun. She barely looked at me. Gloria, could you please stay out of the dining area while guests are arriving? It's just, there's limited space. I smiled tightly. Of course. But she didn't stop there. Oh, and if anyone asks, maybe say you're helping the staff tonight. It'll make things easier. That one landed like a slap. Staff. I raised her husband. Fed him, loved him, carried him through every fever, every heartbreak, and now I was reduced to helping the staff. The doorbell rang, and people began to flow in. Lawyers, realtors, executives. Beautiful people with expensive laughs. I stayed quiet in the kitchen, listening to the sound of my son greeting everyone, the clinking of glasses, the false warmth of polite voices. Dinner was set for 10 people. The table was long and elegant, with tall candles and white linen napkins folded like swans. I waited to see where my seat was, but as Jasmine walked past me with her clipboard, I realized there wasn't one. When the last guest arrived, she turned to me and smiled that thin, perfect smile. Gloria, would you mind eating in the laundry room tonight? We're a little tight on space. The room went still. One of her friends, a man in a grey suit, glanced up awkwardly. Another woman looked down at her wine glass. Aaron looked between us, his mouth opening like he wanted to say something, but then he closed it again. I swallowed hard. The laundry room? Jasmine's tone was smooth as honey. It's just for tonight. There's a little table in there, and it's quieter. You'll be more comfortable, I promise. Comfortable. The same word people use when they don't want to say out of sight. I looked at my son. Aaron. He looked away. Mom, maybe just for tonight. It's crowded. Crowded. His mother's presence was crowded. I nodded slowly, holding on to the edge of the counter to keep my hands from trembling. Of course, I said quietly. I understand. I carried my small plate, just salad and a piece of chicken, down the hall to the laundry room. The hum of the dryer filled the air. A single folding chair sat by a little side table meant for folding clothes. I sat down, back straight, staring at the detergent bottles lined up like soldiers on a shelf. Through the wall, I could hear laughter, music, glasses clinking, my son's voice, Jasmine's fake charm. And I thought about every meal I'd ever cooked for him. Every night I stayed up late making sure he never went to bed hungry. Every prayer I whispered asking God to make his life better than mine. Now here I was, eating alone in a laundry room, while my son dined at a table I wasn't worthy of. But I didn't cry. Not one tear. Instead, I prayed. Not for myself, but for them. Because I knew what was coming. And sometimes, God doesn't have to raise his voice. He just lets the truth speak when it's ready. Dessert was served around 8 o'clock. That's when it happened. I heard a commotion from the dining room, a shout, a crash, then gasps. The kind that make people drop their forks. I stood up slowly, my heart steady. I didn't rush. When I stepped into the hallway, I saw the truth unfolding like scripture. Aaron was standing beside the dessert table, holding a small white box. Inside were letters, credit statements, past due notices, all addressed to him. His voice shook. "Jasmine, what is this?" She froze. "Aaron, I can explain." But she couldn't. Because the truth was louder than her lies. While she was planning dinner parties and treating me like a servant, she'd been using Aaron's name to open store accounts, financing her luxury life with his credit. The guests were silent, watching. Aaron turned to me, finally looking me in the eyes for the first time that night. "Mom," he said quietly, "you were right." I didn't say a word. I just looked at Jasmine, who was trembling now, the color draining from her face. That's when I finally allowed myself a small, calm smile. Because the woman who'd made me eat in the laundry room was now being stripped of every ounce of pride, right there at her own dinner table. And dessert hadn't even been served yet. You could have heard a pin drop in that dining room. The kind of silence that settles when masks start to crack. Jasmine's hand shook as she reached for the box, her voice trembling. "Aaron, this isn't what you think." But my son didn't let her finish. "No, Jasmine. It's exactly what I think." He held up one of the papers. "This is a credit card statement from a boutique in Lenox Square, in my name. Here's another one from a jewelry store. And this one. It's for a luxury spa. You spent almost $10,000, Jasmine, in 3 months." Her guests exchanged glances. The polite smiles were gone now, replaced by something cold and judgmental. The kind of look Jasmine had given me so many times before. She tried to compose herself. "Aaron, I was going to tell you. It's just, I wanted us to have the kind of lifestyle your colleagues have. You've been working so hard, and you thought the answer was stealing?" His voice cracked like thunder. "You used my name, my credit, my trust." Her mouth opened, then closed. No more words left to twist the truth. One of the women at the table cleared her throat. "Maybe we should give them privacy," she whispered. But I stepped forward from the hallway, my back straight, my voice calm. "No need. Let them stay." Every head turned. There I was, standing in the doorway with my plate in hand, still wearing my blue dress, still smelling faintly of detergent and fabric softener. I didn't shout. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I think everyone should see what happens when you build a house on pride instead of love," I said softly. Jasmine's face went pale. "Gloria, this isn't." I held up my hand. "Don't, baby. You've said enough tonight." Aaron's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, I didn't know. I didn't know she was doing any of this." "I know you didn't," I said gently. "That's why I didn't say a word. Because sometimes the truth don't need help, it just needs time." The guests sat frozen. The woman who'd once bragged about her perfect marriage, her perfect home, her perfect life, was now unraveling in front of them, undone not by me, but by her own greed. Jasmine suddenly stood up, her voice breaking. "Everyone, please, just go. I'm sorry, this isn't." But they were already leaving. Chairs scraping, whispers trailing like wind through broken glass. Aaron stayed silent, watching the people file out. Then he looked at his wife. "How long?" "6 months, she said quietly. "It started small. I thought I could pay it back." He shook his head. You humiliated my mother tonight, Jasmine. You told her to eat in the laundry room, in her own son's house, and now look at you. You've embarrassed yourself. She started crying, mascara streaking down her face. I didn't mean. He cut her off. No. You meant every word. You meant to put her beneath you. You've been doing it since the day you met her. I took a step closer, calm but steady. Aaron, let her speak. Let her hear herself. But Jasmine just dropped into a chair, her face buried in her hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't know what came over me. I just wanted to be seen. To be enough. That was the first honest thing she'd said all night. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who treated me like a burden, who'd spent so much time trying to look perfect she forgot how to be kind. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt sorry. Because nothing breaks a person faster than realizing that the image they built for the world doesn't match the truth inside them. Aaron turned to me, his voice small. Mom, will you stay here tonight? I smiled sadly. No, baby. I think I'll go home. I've been in this house long enough. He nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. I'm sorry, Mom. I reached out and cupped his face the way I used to when he was little. You didn't fail me, Aaron. You just forgot who you were for a while. But that's all right. Life has a way of reminding us. When I stepped out into the cool night air, the stars were bright above Atlanta. I could still hear voices inside, the low hum of confrontation and regret. But I didn't need to stay. I'd already seen enough to know that sometimes, the best revenge isn't anger or payback, it's dignity. Because the same woman who'd made me eat beside a washing machine had just been forced to wash her own image clean, in front of everyone. And that kind of lesson, it sticks longer than any shame ever could. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The house was so quiet, it almost felt like it was holding its breath after what had happened the night before. My stomach still turned every time I replayed Jasmine's words in my mind. You can eat in the laundry room. The humiliation sat heavy in my chest like a stone that refused to move. When I came upstairs, the dining table was spotless. The only trace of last night's dinner was a faint smell of roasted chicken mixed with bleach. Jasmine was at the sink, humming softly, pretending nothing had happened. Aaron sat at the counter, coffee mug in hand, scrolling through his phone. Good morning, I said, my voice steady but cold. Aaron looked up, guilt flickering in his eyes. Morning, Ma. Jasmine didn't even turn around. Morning, she said curtly, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. I poured myself some coffee and sat at the small breakfast table near the window. The same chair where, just a few nights before, I'd watched my grandson color his school project. But now the air felt heavy. Even the sunlight seemed reluctant to enter that room. Aaron cleared his throat. About last night. I didn't look at him. Don't, I said quietly. You let her speak to me like that. You sat there and said nothing. Ma, it wasn't like that. Oh, it was exactly like that, I said, finally turning to him. You let your wife send me to eat alone beside a washing machine because she said I embarrassed her. Jasmine turned from the sink, towel in hand. I didn't send you anywhere, Gloria. I simply suggested a quieter place for you to eat since you said loud rooms give you headaches. You're twisting things. I laughed once, sharp and bitter. You're good at twisting things, Jasmine. I'll give you that. Aaron rubbed his temples. Can we not do this first thing in the morning? No, Aaron, I said. We have to do it exactly first thing in the morning. Because I won't pretend it didn't happen. Not again. Jasmine crossed her arms. Maybe this isn't working, Gloria. You moving in here was supposed to be temporary. You're used to doing things your way, and I understand that. But this is our home now. You can't just take over the kitchen or rearrange the living room like it's yours. I stared at her. I raised the man you married in this house. Every inch of it holds my life. I'm not taking over. I'm existing. The room went silent. Even the refrigerator hum felt too loud. Then Aaron stood abruptly and walked away, mumbling something about needing to clear his head. As soon as the door shut behind him, Jasmine dropped the polite act. Her eyes hardened. You really should start thinking about moving out, Gloria. It'll be better for everyone. I met her gaze without flinching. Everyone or just you? She smirked. Let's not make this personal. Oh, it's already personal, I said, pushing back my chair. But don't worry, Jasmine. You'll get what you want soon enough. I left the kitchen, my heart pounding, but there was a strange calm under it. I'd spent months trying to keep peace, swallowing insults and walking on eggshells. That ended the moment she made me eat in that laundry room. By noon, the neighborhood grapevine had already done its work. My friend Evelyn from the church called. Gloria, honey, I heard something about Thanksgiving at your place. You okay? I'm fine, I said, though my voice trembled slightly. I don't think so, Evelyn said gently. People talk, but they also see. And they saw the way your daughter-in-law treated you. You don't deserve that. You've given too much to be treated like a burden. Tears filled my eyes, but I held them back. Thank you, Evelyn. That afternoon, I went for a walk through the neighborhood. Every familiar face I passed gave me that look, sympathy mixed with quiet outrage. And though I hated pity, there was a small comfort in knowing that truth had a way of traveling faster than lies. When I got back home, I found Aaron sitting alone on the porch. He looked tired, older somehow. Ma, he said softly. I'm sorry. I sat beside him. Sorry doesn't undo what happened, but I know it's hard for you, baby. You're stuck between loyalty and love. He looked down. I just want peace. You can't have peace where there's no respect, I said. He didn't respond, but I saw something shift in his face, a flicker of awareness, maybe guilt. Inside, I could see Jasmine through the window, talking on the phone, laughing, her voice dripping with that same false charm she used on everyone. But this time, something inside me had changed. I wasn't going to be the quiet mother-in-law anymore. It was time to let truth speak louder than humiliation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the sound of the washing machine still echoing in my memory like a cruel reminder. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jasmine's face, calm, proud, untouchable, and the look in Aaron's eyes when he said nothing to defend me. But I wasn't the same woman I was before. Something in me had shifted. I'd spent too many years shrinking myself to keep the peace. Now I needed the truth, not just for me, but for the son I raised. The next morning, after Aaron left for work, I found Jasmine sitting in the living room with her laptop open. She was surrounded by papers, bills, and envelopes, some with my name on them. When she saw me, she froze for half a second, then quickly closed the computer lid. Morning, Gloria, she said, her tone sharp but rehearsed. Morning, I answered, keeping my voice steady. My eyes moved to the stack of papers beside her. One caught my attention. It had my name printed in bold at the top. Gloria Henderson. What's that? I asked. She slid the papers aside. Just some mail that got mixed up. Don't worry about it. I wasn't worried, I said slowly. Until now. Her jaw tightened. I said it's nothing. But as she got up and left the room, my instincts screamed. Something was wrong. I waited until I heard her footsteps upstairs. Then I sat down on the couch and pulled the papers toward me. What I saw made my stomach twist. Credit card statements, bank notifications, and worse, a loan approval letter, all in my name. The loan amount was nearly $18,000. The signature at the bottom wasn't mine, but it was a near-perfect imitation. I felt the blood drain from my face. I turned on my phone and opened my banking app. I scrolled through my account history and froze. There were transactions I didn't recognize, online purchases, home decor stores, even salon appointments. She was using my credit, my identity. And suddenly, Pieces started falling into place. The new furniture she bragged about buying, on sale. The luxury handbag she said was a gift from a friend. The phone calls she took in the laundry room, whispering about payments and approvals. I felt a cold wave of betrayal crash through me. I took pictures of every document, every statement, every proof I could gather. Then I called someone I trusted, Evelyn, my best friend. Evelyn, it's me, I said, my voice trembling. Gloria, you sound shaken. What happened? I think Jasmine's been using my name for loans. I just found the papers. I don't even know how deep it goes. Evelyn was silent for a moment. Lord have mercy. Gloria, you can't let that slide. You need to protect yourself. I know, I whispered. But I can't destroy my son's marriage without proof. I need to handle this carefully. Evelyn sighed. Handle it smart, but don't let her get away with it. That woman humiliated you once already. You have every right to fight back. Her words gave me courage. I hung up and took a deep breath. That afternoon, while Jasmine was out running errands, I checked the home office. On the desk was a folder labeled Finances. Inside were more documents, bills, receipts, and emails she had printed. One email caught my eye. It was from a loan company. The subject line read, "Your second loan has been approved, Mrs. Henderson." Second loan. I clicked the message open and saw a transaction history. She'd taken out 15 small loans over the past year, all under my name, all approved with my old social security number and address. She'd been stealing from me for months. The rage I felt wasn't just about money. It was about the years of love, trust, and kindness I'd shown her, all thrown back in my face. When I heard the front door open, I quickly put everything back. My hands shook, but my mind was crystal clear. Jasmine walked in with shopping bags, humming like her world was perfect. I picked up some groceries, she said casually, and a few things for the dinner party tomorrow night. I looked at her, forcing a smile. That's nice. You really do like hosting people, don't you? She smiled, oblivious. Of course. Presentation is everything. Yes, I said softly. It certainly is. I went to my room that evening and locked the door. I laid out all the photos I'd taken, organized them by date, and placed them in a folder. Then I wrote one sentence on a piece of paper and tucked it inside the folder. Truth serves itself best when it's served cold. The next day, I planned to serve it right at her dinner table. The next morning, the house buzzed with a strange kind of energy. Jasmine moved quickly through the kitchen, giving orders to the cleaning crew and checking her phone every few minutes. Tonight was her big dinner, the one she'd been bragging about for weeks. A gathering of lawyers, clients, and neighbors she wanted to impress. Everything has to be perfect, she said as I passed by. No mistakes, no delays, no noise. She didn't even look at me, just kept flipping through her notes like a CEO in a meeting. Don't worry, I said softly. I wouldn't want to embarrass you again. She paused for a moment, then forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Glad we understand each other. What she didn't know was that I had a plan, and this time, I was going to let her own words destroy her. By noon, I had everything I needed. I'd copied all the forged documents into a folder with her name on it, printed the emails, and slipped them inside a plain envelope. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, truth wrapped in silence, waiting for the right moment to speak. Aaron came home early that day, adjusting his tie as he walked in. Hey Ma, he said, trying to sound casual. You're coming tonight, right? Wouldn't miss it, I replied. He smiled with relief. Good. Jasmine's nervous about tonight. It means a lot to her. I know, I said, watching his face. But maybe tonight will mean something to you too. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? You'll see, baby. Just be ready to listen before you choose a side. As the afternoon slipped away, I prepared my dish, roasted chicken, seasoned just the way Aaron liked when he was little. Cooking always calmed me, even now, when my heart beat faster with every turn of the spoon. At 6 sharp, the guests started arriving. Cars lined the driveway, and laughter filled the air. Jasmine greeted each guest like she was the queen of the evening, her golden brown skin glowing under the chandelier, her sleek ponytail swaying as she moved from one conversation to another. She wore a white dress, pure, elegant, deceitful. "Welcome, everyone. Please make yourselves comfortable," she said, her voice bright and rehearsed. I stayed in the background at first, letting her shine. I didn't need the spotlight. I only needed the truth to have its stage. Aaron introduced me to a few guests, and I noticed something odd. Some of them already knew my name. A few smiled at me warmly. One woman, an older attorney with silver hoops and deep brown skin, pulled me aside and said quietly, "It's an honor to meet you, Ms. Henderson. I've heard about your kindness." My eyebrows lifted. "You have?" She smiled knowingly. "Oh, word travels fast, dear. Especially the truth." When dinner was served, Jasmine took her place at the head of the table, all smiles. The plates gleamed, the wine sparkled, and everyone seemed charmed by her perfection. Then, halfway through the meal, I stood up. My knees trembled slightly, but my voice didn't. "Excuse me," I said, my tone calm but commanding. "I'd like to say a few words." The table fell silent. Jasmine looked startled. "Gloria, maybe after dessert." "No," I interrupted gently. "Now is better." I took a deep breath, holding the small envelope in my hand. "This dinner is beautiful, Jasmine. You've truly outdone yourself. But before dessert, I think everyone deserves to know the real sweetness of honesty." She blinked. "What are you talking about?" I smiled faintly. "You see, a home doesn't crumble because of one harsh word or a single act of pride. It falls apart when deceit becomes the foundation. And tonight, we're sitting on a house built with lies." A few guests exchanged glances. Aaron's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "Jasmine," I said, my voice steady, "I found something of yours. Papers, emails, loans, all in my name. Care to explain why I'm apparently financing your dinner parties and handbags?" Her face went pale. "What?" she stammered. "That's ridiculous." "Oh, is it?" I opened the envelope and pulled out the documents. "Because these say otherwise. You forged my signature, took out loans in my name, and used my credit to fund your lifestyle. I didn't believe it at first, until I saw your email confirming the second loan." A gasp rippled through the table. Jasmine's hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. "Gloria, please," Aaron whispered, his face stricken. "No, Aaron. Not this time." She made me eat in the laundry room to keep up appearances, but tonight, everyone's going to see what she was hiding behind those perfect smiles. Jasmine pushed back her chair, eyes darting around the room. "This isn't true. She's lying to ruin me." I set the papers down on the table and looked at her calmly. "If it's a lie, call the bank. They'll confirm whose name is on the loans." For the first time, Jasmine had no words. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The silence in the room was deafening. Aaron looked from me to his wife, realization dawning in his eyes like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "Jasmine, is this true?" Tears filled her eyes. "Aaron, I can explain." But no one was listening anymore. I turned to the guests. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came to reclaim my dignity. Because no one deserves to be shamed for love, or kindness, or honesty, least of all in their own family." Then I sat down, and for the first time in a long while, I felt peace. The dessert went untouched. The morning after the dinner, Atlanta felt different. Quiet, almost cautious. Word had already begun to spread, faster than Jasmine could ever imagine. What happened in her dining room had turned into whispers that rolled through offices, church pews, and even grocery store aisles. The story wasn't just about fraud, it was about pride, cruelty, and a woman who forgot where she came from. Jasmine didn't leave the house for 2 days. She shut the blinds, ignored her phone, and refused to speak to anyone. Her perfect image, the polished lawyer, the flawless hostess, had shattered overnight. Meanwhile, I went about my day like always. Fed the birds, made my coffee, and turned on the gospel station that filled my kitchen with warmth. Aaron came by that afternoon. His shoulders were heavy, eyes red from sleeplessness. "Mom," he said quietly, sitting at the kitchen table, "I don't even know how to look at her. Every time I close my eyes, I see that night." I placed a cup of coffee in front of him. "You don't have to figure it all out today, baby. Some lessons take time to settle." He sighed. "The worst part is, you were nothing but kind to her. You welcomed her. You forgave her. And she..." He didn't finish. "She was lost," I said. Too busy pretending to be above others to realize she was falling below herself. Aaron nodded slowly. "The firm found out. One of her colleagues called me this morning. Said they can't trust someone who lies about money, even off the clock. So she lost her job." He nodded. "Suspended. Pending review. They'll probably cut her loose quietly." I took a deep breath. Sometimes life does what words can't. It teaches. That weekend, I went to Sunday service as usual. The church was full. Maybe fuller than ever. When I walked in, conversations paused. Faces turned. Then, as if by instinct, the congregation began to clap. Not mockingly. Not out of gossip. Out of respect. Sister Rachel hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Gloria, honey, we heard what you did. You didn't humiliate her. You handled her. With grace." I smiled softly. "Grace and truth go hand in hand, sister." Pastor Harris stepped forward after the service and asked me to stand beside him. "Church," he said, "sometimes God lets us be tested, not to destroy us, but to remind the world that integrity still matters." Miss Gloria here stood in the face of pride and told the truth with courage. And that's something we should all thank her for. The crowd rose to their feet again, applauding. My cheeks burned, but my heart felt full. It wasn't about recognition. It was about redemption, mine, and maybe even Jasmine's, if she chose to take it. That evening, I received a message from one of Jasmine's old co-workers, the same woman who had defended me quietly at the dinner. Her message said, "You reminded us what strength looks like. Every black woman in that room saw herself in you that night. Thank you for showing us that dignity doesn't whisper, it stands tall." I read it twice, tears welling in my eyes. For the first time since Roy died, I felt like my purpose had been restored. Aaron came over later that night with a small bag of clothes. "I'm staying here for a while," he said quietly, "until I can figure out what comes next." "Of course," I said. "This is your home." He nodded. "I think she's leaving the condo. She packed most of her things this morning." I didn't stop her. There was no triumph in his voice. Just quiet exhaustion, the kind that comes when love has run out of places to hide. Later, as I sat on my porch watching the sun dip below the trees, Evelyn called. "Girl," she said in her no-nonsense tone, "you handled that mess better than any courtroom could." Jasmine dug her own grave with her silver spoon. I laughed for the first time in days. "Evelyn, don't say that. She's human. Just lost her way." "Maybe," she replied, "but you showed every woman watching that being humble don't mean being weak." I looked up at the sky, painted orange and pink. That's all I ever wanted her to see. The night air was cool and still. Somewhere in the distance, a choir practiced, their voices floating over the neighborhood like soft light. For the first time in a long while, peace didn't feel like a stranger in my home. But life wasn't done teaching yet. The next chapter wasn't about Jasmine's fall. It was about what we all learned standing in the wreckage of pride. I did not wake up the next day feeling like a hero. I woke up with stiff knees, a full sink, and a grown son sleeping in his old room like a boy who had seen a ghost. Life has a way of reminding you that even after the earthquake, there are still floors to sweep. Aaron came into the kitchen in the morning wearing one of his old college t-shirts he found in the back of the closet. His eyes were puffy, his beard a little overgrown. He sat down at the table and watched me crack eggs into a bowl like I had done all his life. "Ma," he said quietly, "I keep replaying that night. I keep seeing her face when you put those papers on the table." I slid a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of him. "What do you see when you look at her face?" He hesitated. "Fear, shame, and something else. Like she was mad at you for exposing her instead of mad at herself for doing it." "That is pride," I said. "It always wants to scream at the mirror instead of asking why the reflection hurts." He poked his fork at the eggs. "You know what hurts me the most? I defended her when you told me she treated you like a burden. I told you to be patient. I told you she meant well. You wanted your marriage to work," I said gently. "A mother cannot blame her child for hoping love will be enough. I hoped it would be too." He swallowed hard. "I failed you." I sat down across from him and took his hand. "The only way you fail me is if you learn nothing from this. You see clearly now. That is enough for today." He nodded, tears shining in his eyes but not falling. "I filed for a legal separation yesterday," he said quietly. "I did it before I came here. I did not want you to think I was still choosing her over you." My chest tightened. I knew the cost of that choice. Marriage breaking feels a lot like bone breaking. "Are you sure?" "I am sure she is not the woman I thought she was," he said. "And I am sure I cannot build a home with someone who thinks my mother belongs in a laundry room." I squeezed his hand. "Then stand by that decision, not for me, but for the man you want to be." The weeks that followed felt like a slow reweaving of torn fabric. Little by little, my days began to look like mine again instead of a schedule built around Jasmine's moods. I went back to volunteering at the community center twice a week. The first day I walked in, the teens at the after-school program cheered like a celebrity had just arrived. "Miss Gloria, we heard about you," one of the girls said, her braids swinging as she talked. "You shut that lady down the right way. You did not yell. You did not cuss. You just brought the receipts." The kids laughed. I smiled, shaking my head. "I did not shut her down, baby. I just stopped letting her walk over me." In the grocery store, people stopped me in the aisles. "Miss Gloria, I heard what happened. You handled it with dignity." "Miss Gloria, my own daughter tries to talk to me like I am in her way. Watching you stand up for yourself gave me courage." An older man at the meat counter leaned on his cart and said, "You reminded all of us that being humble does not mean disappearing." Every word felt like a stitch pulling something in me back together. One afternoon, Evelyn came over with a pie and her loud honesty. She sat at my table, kicked off her shoes, and sighed like she lived there. "So," she said, cutting herself a large slice, "how does it feel to be the unofficial patron saint of fed-up mothers-in-law in Atlanta?" I laughed. "Is that what they are calling me now?" "Child, you have no idea," she said. "Group chats are full of your story. Women are finally saying out loud, 'I am not a burden. I am not disposable. I am not an unpaid maid in my children's homes.'" You opened something. I stirred my tea slowly. I did not set out to open anything. I just refused to swallow that humiliation and call it love. "That is exactly what makes it powerful," Evelyn said. "You did it in a way any woman could see herself doing. No drama. No scandal for entertainment. Just truth." We sat in silence for a moment, listening to a gospel song floating softly from the radio. Then she said, "Have you heard from her, Jasmine?" I shook my head. "Not directly. Aaron says she is staying at a friend's place. The firm let her go. Her parents are embarrassed. They told her she needs to fix her character before they keep helping her." Evelyn snorted. "They should have told her that years ago." I looked out the window. I do not wish her misery, Evelyn. I just hope she learns something that did not fit on a law school exam. Aaron started to rebuild his life in small steps. He moved in with me for a while, but not as a broken man. More like a wounded one choosing healing. He helped with small repairs around the house, cooked dinner on nights I was tired, and sometimes just sat in the living room staring at old photos as if trying to remember a version of himself he had misplaced. One evening, I found him in the hallway, standing in front of a framed picture of him at 8 years old, covered in barbecue sauce and grinning from ear to ear. "Remember that day?" I asked. He chuckled. "Family reunion at Uncle Leo's. I ate 3 plates and still asked for a 4th. And not once," I said, "did anyone tell me I was embarrassing them by feeding you too much." He sighed. "I keep thinking about the night she made you sit in that laundry room. I keep asking myself why I did not stand up right then. Why I sat there and watched my mother be treated like an uninvited guest in her own story." "You were afraid," I said simply. "Afraid of rocking the boat. Afraid of being alone. Afraid that defending me meant losing her." He frowned. "So what does that make me now? Someone who decided that his soul is more important than his comfort," I said. "That is a man I can be proud of." Months passed. The scandal died down in public chatter, but not in private lessons. People remembered, not the drama, but the image of an older black woman standing at a polished dining table, calmly laying down the truth while everyone else stared into their plates. I was invited to speak at a small women's group at church. I did not give a formal speech. I just told my story. The laundry room. The loans. The dinner. The moment I decided that if I was going to eat beside a washing machine, it would not be my dignity getting wrung out. A woman in the front row raised her hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My daughter talks to me like I am a nuisance every time I visit," she said. "She rolls her eyes when I ask to see my grandbabies. I thought I had to accept it because I did not want to lose them. Hearing you tonight, I realized I have already lost myself." I walked down and hugged her. "You do not have to choose between loving your family and respecting yourself. Those 2 things should never be enemies." One evening, I sat on the porch with Aaron. The sun was low, painting the sky a soft purple. He leaned back in the old rocking chair that used to be his father's. "You know what I realized," he said. "Jasmine loved the version of me that looked good on paper. The job, the condo, the lifestyle. You loved the version of me who came home with scraped knees and C's on his report card. The boy who needed to be seen, not presented." I smiled. Every child needs a place where they are not a performance. He turned to me. "I am sorry it took me so long to see the difference." "You see it now," I said. "And that is enough for me." He nodded. "You think she will ever really change?" "I do not know," I answered honestly. "But I know this. The night everyone heard the truth, Jasmine lost control of the story. She can either spend her life trying to rewrite it, or she can start living a different one." He sat with that for a moment. "And you, Ma? What did you gain?" I looked up at the darkening sky. I gained my voice back. And I learned that even if somebody tries to sit me in a laundry room, my worth still belongs at the table. Spring came early that year. The azaleas bloomed along the sidewalks in bright bursts of pink and red, and the air smelled like rain and second chances. I had just left the community center when I saw her, Jasmine, standing by the parking lot, holding a paper bag of groceries, her shoulders slightly hunched, the kind of posture people wear when they are still learning to carry regret. For a moment, neither of us moved. The last time I had seen her, she was sitting in a courtroom of her own pride, trying to defend a life built on appearances. Now she looked human, smaller, softer. "Gloria," she said finally, her voice fragile. "Can I talk to you?" I nodded slowly. "We can talk right here." She set the bag down, clutching her purse as if it might give her courage. "I've wanted to reach out for months. I just didn't know how." "Words are easy," I said gently. It's how you use them that matters. I know, she said, her eyes glistening. I came to say I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry I said before, the kind that means nothing. I mean the kind that sits heavy in your chest every day. The kind that keeps you awake. I said nothing, just listened. I lost everything after that night, she continued. The firm dropped me. My parents cut me off financially. My friends, they stopped inviting me anywhere. I thought success was about being above everyone else, but it turns out nobody wants to stand next to someone who looks down on people. There was no arrogance left in her voice, only a trembling honesty that caught me off guard. After Aaron left, I moved into a small apartment near downtown, she said. At first, I hated it. No marble floors, no fancy furniture, just 4 walls and quiet. But then I met my neighbors, a single mom, a retired nurse, a bus driver, and they became the kindest people I've ever known. They invite me over for potlucks. And every week, they serve mac and cheese. Not the boxed kind, the real kind. The kind that smells like home. Her voice broke. Every time I eat it, I think of you. The parking lot felt still. Even the wind seemed to pause. I didn't just disrespect you, she whispered. I disrespected the people who raised me. The women who cooked before me. The ones who made something out of nothing. I thought being educated meant being better. But now I know it just means you've been taught. Wisdom. That's something else entirely. I stepped closer, studying her face. The tear-streaked makeup, the humbled eyes. She was no longer the woman who measured her worth by price tags. What do you want from me, Jasmine? I asked quietly. She took a breath. Forgiveness. Not because I deserve it. Because I need to move forward. I looked out toward the road, where the city hummed with life. Then I looked back at her. Forgiveness isn't a gift you ask for, I said softly. It's something you earn by living differently. She nodded, tears spilling freely now. Then I'll keep trying. I put a hand on her shoulder. You start by feeding others, not your ego. She let out a small laugh, shaky but real. Maybe you can teach me how to make your mac and cheese one day. Maybe, I said, a small smile forming. If you promise to serve it with humility. A week later, she showed up at the community center where I volunteered. No makeup, no designer heels. Just jeans, a blue t-shirt, and a notebook in her hand. I came to help, she said simply. The kids adored her. Jasmine spent the whole afternoon helping them with homework, wiping sticky hands, and laughing. Real laughter, the kind that doesn't need approval. At the end of the day, she helped me pack up the leftovers. Miss Gloria, one of the boys called out. This your daughter? Jasmine froze. I looked at him and smiled. Something like that. The boy grinned and ran off. Jasmine blinked back tears. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a long time. It's the truth, I said. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when pride walks out. She helped me carry the last tray to the car. As the sun dipped low, she whispered, "Thank you for letting me try again." I nodded. Just remember, the laundry room isn't where you send people you love. It's where you wash away what got dirty. Months passed, and Jasmine kept showing up. She started a small legal aid project at the community center, helping single mothers and senior citizens with paperwork they couldn't afford attorneys for. She called it the Gloria Project. When she told me the name, I nearly dropped my grocery bag. You named it after me? She smiled. After the woman who reminded me what real strength looks like. The project grew fast. The same community that once whispered about her now applauded her. Redemption didn't come overnight, but it came, through service, humility, and showing up even when no one was watching. Aaron eventually came to one of the center's events. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching Jasmine help an elderly couple fill out forms. His eyes softened. Later, he told me, She's not the same woman anymore. No, I said. She's not. He hesitated. You think we'll ever find our way back? I smiled. Sometimes love isn't about returning to what was. It's about honoring what's become. He nodded slowly. Then I'll keep watching her grow from a distance. On the 1-year anniversary of the dinner, Jasmine hosted a meal at the community center. She cooked everything herself: fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, and yes, mac and cheese. Before we ate, she stood up and said, "A year ago, I asked someone I loved to eat in a laundry room. Tonight, I'm serving everyone in the same room, because love doesn't belong behind doors." The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was soft, reverent, full of grace. When I took the first bite of her mac and cheese, I smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. "Not bad," I said. She laughed through her tears. I learned from the best. As people ate, I sat back and watched the room. Children laughing, elders sharing stories, hands passing plates without judgment or pride. The same meal that once caused humiliation had now become communion. Later that night, as I locked up the center, Jasmine hugged me tightly. "You changed my life," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "Life changed you. I just made sure you didn't miss the lesson." I walked to my car under the warm Atlanta sky, the air filled with gospel humming from a nearby church. Sometimes God doesn't shout. He just sets the table again, and gives you one more chance to sit in the right seat. And that night, as I drove home, I whispered to myself, I was never meant to eat in a laundry room. I was meant to teach people how to serve with love.